Listen, God didn't create you to be average. He didn't design you to sit in a pew of potential and never stand in the pulpit of purpose. Every excuse you make is not just a lie to the world, it's a lie to yourself. And worse, it's a rebellion against the assignment heaven put in your heart. You want a breakthrough? You want to elevate? Then you've got to kill your excuses before they kill your future. Excuses are nothing more than well-dressed justifications for inaction. They sound good, they sound smart, but they cost you time, talent, and treasure. The enemy doesn't need to take your dream, he just needs to convince you you're not ready. You say, I don't have enough money, but maybe God's waiting for you to start so he can multiply. You say, I don't have the education, yet God used shepherds, fishermen, and tax collectors to flip the world upside down. You say, it's not the right time, but when did David wait for permission to face Goliath? Let me tell you what excuses really are. Permission slips you right to yourself to avoid becoming the person God called you to be. The only thing standing between your current condition and your destined elevation is your decision to stop making excuses and start building power. Excuses are the language of the defeated. Power is the language of the delivered. You've been delivered from fear, delivered from shame, delivered from lack. And it's time your actions started agreeing with that truth. Excuses are the silent assassins of purpose. They hide in plain sight, disguised as logic, wrapped in reason, and armed with emotional justification. The human mind, when left unchallenged, will protect comfort at the expense of calling. People don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they find excuses more comfortable than commitment. Every time you say, I can't, what you really mean is, I won't. Every time you say, it's too hard, you're really saying, I'm not willing to stretch. And every time you say, it's not the right time, what you're really doing is negotiating with procrastination. Excuses become patterns, and patterns become prisons. You were not born to live in the prison of fear, doubt, or delay. You were created with power, love, and a sound mind. But that power only flows where excuses are cut off at the root. Power doesn't grow in the soil of victimhood. Power requires ownership. When you take responsibility for everything in your life, the good, the bad, the ugly, you strip excuses of their influence. Responsibility is the fertilizer for dominion. If you want to build your power, you must become allergic to excuses. Reject them the way a healthy body rejects a virus. Stop reasoning with them. Stop explaining them. Stop decorating them with stories that make them sound noble. You've got to become ruthless with excuses. They are thieves. They rob you of your time, your momentum, and your capacity. They trick you into thinking that delay is safe and that later is better. But later is the enemy of legacy. Your purpose doesn't exist in tomorrow. It exists in your next obedient step. And that step cannot coexist with excuses. When you kill your excuses, what you're really doing is removing the blockages to your own power. You were made in the image of a creator who spoke things into being, who brought light out of darkness, who called order out of chaos. That same creative force lives in you, but it cannot operate through a mind clouded with justifications. When the Israelites stood at the edge of the promised land, it wasn't the giants that kept them out. It was their excuses. We are like grasshoppers in our own sight. Their power was stolen not by their enemy, but by their self-perception. Power begins with how you see yourself. If you see yourself as someone who always has a reason, you'll never be someone who always has a result. Results are the reward for those who act while others argue with themselves. Results come to the person who decides that movement is better than mastery. Power increases when you move forward, not when you wait for conditions to be perfect. You build your power by stepping into the unfamiliar, by doing what's difficult, and by refusing to use your past as an alibi for your present paralysis. Every great person you admire built their power by sacrificing their excuses. They laid them on the altar of growth and chose ownership over comfort. They understood that weakness isn't in failure, it's in blaming. When you stop blaming your past, your parents, your paycheck, your education, or your environment, you tap into a level of power that no man, system, or economy can take from you. This power is forged in pressure. It's refined in obedience. It's increased by discipline, and it's multiplied by consistency. You don't need more talent. You need fewer excuses. You don't need more motivation. You need more motion. Once you begin moving in the direction of your assignment, your power compounds. You become the kind of person who doesn't just wish, but works, not just dreams, but does, not just starts, but sustains. That kind of person doesn't look for excuses. They look for opportunities. They don't shrink from challenges. They see them as workouts for their strength. Because power is not given to the one who hesitates. It's attracted to the one who is committed. Your words are the architects of your reality. What you speak creates the boundaries of what you experience. When you constantly speak defeat, delay, or doubt, you're authoring a life that reflects those very things. Most people don't realize that they are prophesying their own limitations every single day. I'm tired. I'm broke. I'm stuck. These aren't just expressions, they're declarations. They give your subconscious a blueprint to build on. And over time, those words become walls. They block vision, stifle belief, and train the spirit to expect less than what was intended. The greatest power you possess outside of choice is your voice. What you say reveals what you believe, and what you believe dictates how you behave. You can't walk in abundance while talking like a victim. You can't expect breakthrough when your mouth is building barriers. Words have weight. They carry energy. They build atmospheres, and they send instructions to your future. That's why alignment is not just about action. It's about articulation. You've got to start saying things that match where you're going, not where you've been. Most people are stuck not because they lack strategy, but because they've never disciplined their speech. They cancel their own harvest by speaking doubt after planting in faith. It's like praying for rain then speaking drought. You can't plant apple seeds and expect oranges. And you can't speak fear and expect boldness. The principle of seed time and harvest applies to your language as much as your labor. If you want to change your life, you have to change your language. Speak what you seek until you see what you said. Don't let your mouth betray your mission. Train your tongue to agree with your purpose. Speak life, even when everything around you looks like death. Speak healing, even when the pain is still present. Speak overflow, even when the account is empty. Because the power of life and death is not in your circumstance, it's in your tongue. This is why declarations are not hype, they're habit. They're not superstition, they're strategy. When you speak with intention, you align your internal world with the external promise. That's how kings operate. They don't beg, they decree. You are not meant to survive by default. You were created to rule by design. But rulers don't whine. They don't explain away their authority, they exercise it. And they do it first through words. If your words are always passive, hesitant, or apologetic, don't be surprised when your results reflect hesitation. Your world will never rise above your words. Speak strong, speak clear, speak now. The truth is, most people don't need a new opportunity, they need a new confession. Because opportunities are often present, but they can't be seen through the fog of false belief. And false belief is built by repetitive wrong speech. Your ears are the gatekeepers of your faith. And when your mouth keeps feeding your ears the wrong things, your faith shrinks. But when you speak what is true, powerful, and rooted in purpose, you edify yourself, you activate power, you awaken courage, you release possibility. And that's when things start to shift. People wonder why some succeed with less talent, fewer resources, and more adversity. It's because those people mastered their mouth. They refused to partner with fear, lack, or despair. They decided that their words would match their destiny, not their discomfort. So while others spoke about obstacles, they declared outcomes. While others talked about problems, they declared solutions. They turned their mouths into miracle makers, not complaint machines. And the fruit followed the sound, because the sound of victory always precedes the sight of it. Your voice creates vibration. It sends a frequency into the atmosphere that either calls things in or pushes them away. You don't need to wait for the environment to change. Speak and change the environment. Speak and the situation begins to obey. Speak and power starts to move. You're not waiting on a shift. You're meant to be the shift. And that shift starts the moment your voice comes into agreement with your vision. The problem with most people is not that they're not capable. It's that they haven't committed. They dabble, they try, they test. But commitment requires you to burn the ships, close the exits, and say, no matter what it costs me, I'm in. Until you commit, you will always have an excuse. Commitment silences the noise of distraction. It eliminates the plan Bs. It clears the mental clutter that comes from hesitation. Commitment is clarity. When you're committed, there is no question about whether or not you're going to show up, give your best, stay the course. You just do. Because commitment is not an emotion, it's a decision. It doesn't depend on how you feel. It's not anchored in convenience. It's forged in conviction. People who are committed make progress because they stop giving themselves options that contradict their goals. They stop having long conversations with their fears. They stop checking the temperature of their feelings before they take action. They know that feelings are real, but they're not always right. They understand that discipline is the bridge between what you want and what you become. And discipline only thrives in the soil of commitment. The reason many people never tap into their full power is because they're trying to achieve permanent results with temporary efforts. They give 50% and expect a 100-fold return. But power doesn't respond to halfway. Power doesn't move for indecision. You have to show up with your whole heart, your whole mind, your whole energy. Partial commitment creates full frustration. It creates a loop of starting and stopping, of momentum and meltdown, of progress and paralysis. And that cycle eats away at confidence, drains your passion, and convinces you that your dream is too hard. But the dream wasn't the problem. The lack of commitment was. If you give your all, you may still face resistance. You may still encounter difficulty, but you'll also grow. You'll build resilience. You'll tap into capacities you didn't even know you had. That's the gift of commitment. It brings out the version of you that only pressure can unlock. People often confuse interest with commitment. Interest is passive. It waits for the right conditions. It needs external motivation. It's driven by feeling. But commitment is active. It creates conditions. It generates its own fire. It keeps moving even when the crowd is gone. If you're only interested in your vision, you'll quit when it gets hard. But if you're committed, you'll find a way through. You won't let rejection break you. You won't let fear freeze you. Commitment gives you tunnel vision for your purpose. It eliminates the desire to please everyone. It breaks the addiction to approval. It builds the backbone to stand when others sit, to go when others stop, to believe when others doubt. Your results will always reflect your level of commitment. You can't reap a harvest from seeds you never planted. And you can't blame the ground for what you didn't water. Commitment is the constant watering. It's the showing up when it's inconvenient. It's the sacrifice others won't make. It's the late nights and early mornings. It's doing the hard things long enough for the easy things to become normal. That's how power is built. Not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Not in the comfort zone, but in the trenches of consistency. Commitment doesn't look glamorous. It's not always exciting, but it produces transformation. The version of you that fulfills your calling isn't formed in comfort, it's carved out by commitment. You don't become powerful by wishing. You become powerful by working, by obeying, by staying, by enduring. That kind of consistency produces strength that temporary passion never will. It's the grind behind the greatness. It's the foundation behind the fruit. And the world doesn't reward your excuses, it rewards your execution. that execution is only possible when you've made the decision to commit fully and without compromise. Fear is the enemy of execution. It disguises itself as wisdom, as caution, as preparation, but its true agenda is paralysis. Fear whispers that you're not ready, that you're not qualified, that you might fail or be judged. It presents the worst-case scenario as certainty and calls it discernment. But the truth is, fear is a thief. It steals time, it steals energy, it steals potential. Every moment spent entertaining fear is a moment not spent executing purpose. You cannot build power and protect fear at the same time. One must be sacrificed for the other. Either you sacrifice your fear and move forward, or you sacrifice your fear and remain stuck. The uncomfortable truth is that most people are loyal to their fear. They feed it with overthinking. They nurture it with delay. They make it stronger with silence. But fear only grows in the absence of movement. It loses its grip the moment you decide to act. The more you move, the more powerless fear becomes. Fear is not an instruction, it's a signal. It's a sign you're getting close to something important, something transformative. But instead of seeing fear as a wall, learn to see it as a doorway. On the other side of fear is your growth, your next level, your reward. But to get there, you have to execute. Execution is the evidence of belief. It's easy to say you have faith, but faith without action is dead. Action is what separates the dreamers from the doers. It's what reveals whether your belief is rooted or just rehearsed. Execution doesn't wait for the absence of fear. It operates in spite of it. That's what courage is. Not the absence of fear, but movement in the midst of it. When you execute, you send a message to fear that it no longer controls your decisions. And every time you act in faith, you weaken fear's authority over your mind. The longer you wait, the stronger fear becomes. But when you execute quickly, consistently, and boldly, you starve fear and feed your power. The habit of execution builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. You begin to see progress, and progress breeds clarity. Most people are waiting for clarity before they act, but clarity comes from action. The more you move, the more you see. The more you see, the more you can adjust. Execution is not about perfection, it's about obedience. It's about responding to the call within you, even when you don't have all the answers. It's about doing what you can with what you have and trusting that provision meets movement. Power is built in the doing, not just the dreaming. Dreams inspire, but execution transforms. It's what turns vision into reality. You can read all the books, take all the courses, attend all the events, but until you execute, nothing changes. Knowledge is potential power. Execution is real power. And every time you follow through on what you know to do, you gain ground. You become more skilled. You become more disciplined. You become more dangerous to every limitation that once held you hostage. Execution trains your mind to believe that results are possible. It replaces theory with proof. It turns maybe someday into I did that. That shift is critical because identity follows action. The more you act like the person you're becoming, the more you believe you are that person. And the more you believe it, the more natural, powerful behavior becomes. People often wonder how others seem to get so much done, how they create so much impact in a short time. The secret is simple. They don't let fear make decisions. They don't consult doubt before they move. They don't ask anxiety for permission. They move, they build, they create. And in doing so, they become. You cannot wait your way into transformation. You act your way into it. You cannot fear your way into fulfillment. You must execute your way forward. Because power is not inherited, it's constructed through consistent obedience to purpose. And the more you act, the more you learn that fear was never the barrier. It was just the illusion that needed to be shattered by movement. Time is not your enemy, but your relationship with it determines your results. Most people treat time like a burden, constantly saying they don't have enough of it, But the truth is, they mismanage what they already have. Time is the great equalizer. Everyone gets the same 24 hours, but not everyone gets the same results. The difference is not the clock, it's the clarity. When your life lacks direction, your time gets consumed by distraction. Distractions are not just external interruptions, they are internal decisions to focus on the lesser instead of the greater. They are choices to prioritize comfort over calling, reaction over responsibility, entertainment over execution. Every minute spent on what doesn't matter is stolen from what does. You don't lose time, you give it away. You trade it for convenience, for noise, for activity that looks like progress but produces no fruit. The people who accomplish more in a day than others do in a week are not lucky, they are focused. They treat time like currency and they invest it where the highest return exists. That return comes from doing what matters most consistently. Power is built in time stewardship. You can't ask for more responsibility if you mismanage what you already have. You can't expect multiplication if you waste the moments meant for preparation. The truth is, your future is being built 1 hour at a time. Every hour you waste is a brick missing from your foundation. Every hour you focus is a brick laid toward your elevation. There is no such thing as neutral time. Time is either moving you forward or letting you drift. Drift never leads to destiny. Direction does. And direction requires decisions. You have to choose what matters more: temporary satisfaction or long-term transformation. Most people say they want change, but live in cycles that steal time instead of redeem it. They repeat behaviors that give them the same week 52 times a year and call it a life. But power doesn't live in repetition without refinement. It lives in intentional repetition, where each action is aligned with purpose. It lives in the ability to say no to what distracts and yes to what disciplines. When you value time, you begin to filter your life through a different lens. You stop asking, is this good? And start asking, is this purposeful? You stop asking, will this be fun? And start asking, will this build? That shift creates acceleration because your energy flows to what's essential. Time stewardship is not about getting more done. It's about doing what matters. You can be busy all day and still be broke, still be stuck, still be behind. Busy is not the same as effective. Activity is not the same as achievement. Results come from rhythm. Power comes from patterns. Your schedule tells the truth about your priorities. If you looked at your last 7 days, would your calendar prove your commitment to your calling? Would your time say you're building something eternal or just surviving something temporary? These are the hard questions, but they reveal the real answers. You don't get more time tomorrow, you only get more impact from the time you already have if you use it well. When you begin to guard your time, you begin to guard your destiny. You begin to create space for thinking, space for building, space for growing. You eliminate the noise so you can hear the next instruction clearly. You stop moving from crisis to crisis and start moving from clarity to clarity. And the clearer your path, the stronger your steps. That's when power starts to stack. Every focused hour builds trust with your future. Every intentional minute compounds. And soon the momentum becomes unstoppable, not because you had more time, but because you honored the time you had. The harvest always honors the schedule. Purpose always honors the planner. Power always honors the steward. When you start seeing time as sacred, you stop wasting it on what's ordinary. You stop seeing pain as the enemy You stop seeing pain as the storm. People lie to you, they threaten you, they steal from you, they steal from you, they steal from you. They stop seeing time as sacred. You stop seeing pain as the enemy. You stop seeing time as sacred. You stop seeing pain as the enemy. You stop seeing time as sacred. You begin investing it in what's extraordinary. And that's when your days stop being filled with tasks and start being filled with transformation. There is a direct connection between your environment and your elevation. You cannot grow in a place that contradicts your purpose. You cannot rise in a room where your calling is constantly diminished. The soil matters. You can have the right seed, the right potential, the right intention, but if the environment is toxic, nothing will flourish. Most people are not failing because of what they lack internally, but because of what surrounds them externally. Their conversations are contaminated. Their associations are draining. Their atmosphere is uninspiring. And yet they expect to produce greatness in a garden full of weeds. Your environment must reflect your destiny, not your history. It must align with where you're going, not where you've been. That means you have to be intentional about what you allow into your space, what you hear, what you see, who you entertain, and what you tolerate. Every time you stay in a negative environment, you reinforce a negative identity. You start to believe that mediocrity is normal. You begin to adjust your dreams downward to match your surroundings. But power is not maintained in comfort zones. Power is cultivated in challenge, in vision, in proximity to people who stretch you. The right environment calls you higher. It doesn't pacify your pain, it pushes you to produce. It doesn't excuse your excuses, it exposes your capacity. It doesn't let you stay the same because it sees who you're becoming. That's why you must be ruthless about curating your atmosphere. The wrong voices will confuse your vision. The wrong habits will kill your momentum. The wrong alignment will delay your assignment. You have to stop asking, can I stay here? And start asking, does this place serve my purpose? Because purpose always requires pruning. And sometimes that pruning is relational. Sometimes it's geographical. Sometimes it's emotional. But if you're serious about growth, you can't stay planted where you're not fed. Environment isn't just about physical space. It's also about internal space. It's about fitness space, the thoughts you rehearse, the emotions you indulge, the mindset you maintain, all create the atmosphere of your inner life. A cluttered mind can't receive clear instruction. A wounded heart can't carry heavy responsibility. You've got to clean the inside before you expect fruit on the outside. That means you have to detox your mind from the lies that have taken root. You have to silence the inner critic that was born from outer criticism. You have to create a sanctuary within that matches the vision you carry. Peace is not passive, it's intentional. Joy is not random, it's cultivated. And confidence is not gifted, it's grown in the environment of right beliefs. When your inner life is aligned, your outer world will begin to reflect that alignment. But if your inner life is chaotic, nothing you build will last. Some environments are seasonal. What worked for your last level won't work for your next. You outgrow atmospheres when you commit to transformation. That's not pride, that's progress. You cannot apologize for needing more clarity, more challenge, more alignment. Some rooms will no longer feel like home, not because something is wrong with them, but because something is right with you. You've matured, you've evolved, and now your environment must reflect that evolution. You were not created to be confined. You were created to expand, but expansion requires space, and space requires boundaries. What you allow is what will remain. If you allow chaos, you'll operate in confusion. If you allow distraction, you'll live in delay. But if you protect your environment, you'll protect your energy. If you upgrade your space, you'll upgrade your standards. And when your standards rise, your results will follow. Greatness needs room. Vision needs air. Calling needs clarity. You have to stop waiting for the right environment and start creating it. Stop wishing someone would build the room you need and start building it yourself. Create the table. Set the atmosphere, invite the right people, dismiss the wrong voices, design a space for your destiny to flourish. Because where you plant yourself will either nurture your power or poison your purpose. You are not created to live bound by excuses, fear, distractions, or delay. You were created to walk in power. Real power doesn't come from talent, luck, or connections. It comes from alignment. When your words match your vision, when your actions match your assignment, when your time reflects your priorities, and when your environment fuels your purpose, that's when power multiplies. Excuses must die so discipline can rise. Fear must be faced so execution can begin. Time must be honored so destiny can unfold. And your environment must be upgraded so your identity can expand. This is not about hype. This is about heaven's design for your life. You are not random. You are not average. You are not optional. You are necessary. So rise, speak with authority, move with intention, act with urgency. Protect your environment, kill your excuses, build your power, and watch how heaven responds to a life fully aligned with its calling.